Hold on, I'm just going to juggle about with this before we start because it's not right. There we go. Let's do it that way. Save my OCD. There we are. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to your Monday night Rangers Rabble Women show on the Rabble Network. And there's a contingent of us tonight because it would have been remiss for anybody to miss out given we're talking about the conclusion of the league campaign. I'm not going to ask anybody how they're feeling because after yesterday's shit show, I've got a fair idea how everybody's feeling. But we're joined tonight by Car, Brian, Alan, and Demi. So, good evening, everybody. And first of all, we'll start with Wednesday night's game, which was a convincing 5-3 win at the Oriam against Heart of Midlothian. And Brian, the starting lineup was as follows.
It was Jenna 5 in goals. We had Docherty, Rafferty, and Middag in the defence. We had McCleary, McLean, Cornett, Macaulay, and then a front three of Howitt, Hardy, and Wilkinson.
Right, and Carl, we started off like a house on fire, to be perfectly honest.
We did for the first half, and then the rest of the game happened.
Right, so Alan, early doors we scored. Mia crossed the ball in and Wilco did what Wilco does. Then very quickly afterwards, Hearts equalised with a very sloppy goal that we should have defended. And then we went back ahead again when Kirsty Howitt was assaulted in the box and we got a penalty.
Yeah, it was a really good response to going behind. It was a concern being paid back so quickly, but I thought the way we responded was good and it was going to bode well for the next sort of 1.5 games. So we got into the lead again and just absolutely ran away with the first half at that point.
Yeah, but I was trying
to steps up to take a penalty in my mind that she's going to score it.
Yeah, and Demi, she didn't have scored. I mean, it was one of them. We were watching it on Emerson Live because obviously I was at Ibrox for the men's Dundee United game, and when we got the penalty, there was 2 or 3 of us watching it, and Demi, she didn't half put it high. I mean, you put it in, the keeper's not stopping it, but you get that slightly wrong, it's going right over the top of the bar, isn't it?
Yeah, I think she did really well with it, but you sort of expect that from her. So yeah, no complaints. It was a really good penalty, and yeah, like you say, the keeper didn't get anywhere near it, so it was made to look like a really good penalty.
And then sticking with you, Demi, getting towards half time, and he puts the ball to Mia. Mia goes from provided the goal scorer to make it 3-1, and then she's provided again with another cross for another goal for Wilco to make it 4.
Yeah, look, you're not really you're not really surprised when you see Mia doing things like that. The pace she's got on the wing, and not so much in recent games, but you that she can take a player on and beat them easily because she's got the pace. So yeah, you can't really be surprised when she's given assists like that. But similarly, she knows where to be. She knows how to find the right spaces at the right time to be able to score goals.
And then, Carl, just before half time, yeah, again, Mia Macaulay turned provider. I mean, I think that was three assists and a goal for Mia. I'm loath to really give her the assist because Kirsty is absolutely brilliant to keep the ball alive. They spin the two defenders and sort of dance around about them. It was a bit of a sort of, I don't know, almost a Highland sword dance over the top of the 2 or 3 of them. You'll know what one of them is coming from up your neck of the woods. And then sticks it in to make it 5-1 at half time.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good goal to spin away from the defenders like that and then rocket into the back of the net. It's pretty good going. We were flying at that point, absolutely cruising. Mia, 2 carbon copy assists for Wilco headers. We were just absolutely off to the races and everybody was in high spirits.
Yeah, and Brian, I don't know how much of the game you saw on Wednesday because I know you were at your work, but 5-1 at half time, you've got to be thinking easy street and how many are we going to end up with?
Yes, just to stop myself there. Yeah, it was 5-1. It was 5-1, and I was pleasantly surprised, thinking, well, this is going to get even better, because obviously Hearts has been a difficult place sometimes for us to go. So yeah, it was a pleasant surprise to see that when I clicked onto the YouTube at half time, and I was thinking, great, this is going to be a really good second half. But unfortunately, that was not the case, was it?
But Alan, unfortunately, as Brian says, that wasn't the case. I mean, we made a couple of half-time substitutions. Camille came on for Rio and Brogan came on for Wilco, or whatever way around you want to say that. That was the two that came off. Clearly, to keep, we're main strike threat. the league decided on Sunday, because you've got to think at 5-1 it's done and dusted. But we effectively lost the second half. And thinking back on it, I didn't think about it at the time, but that's quite concerning given how Sunday ended up.
It was. I said at half time when we were making the two subs that we just needed to keep the intensity up and not let it drop too far and give anything stupid away. And then, as we tend to do, we overplay it at the back, we make a mistake. Jenna's forming an extra player at field and she's miles out of goal. Ellie Shore was a tap in for 30 yards. Hearts are back in it. Hearts go on, put a lot of pressure on, add another, because we switched off. We've went to 4 at the back, which hasn't worked once when Joe Potter's been here, but she went 4 at the back in the second half and we just never got going. There was a couple of chances, but it was a warning shot ahead of yesterday's game. 4 at the back does not suit this team. Playing a back 4, limits what we can do. Puts players out of position. It means we seem to concede the midfield a bit too much, but Joe didn't seem to notice this.
Yeah, I mean, Demi's, as Alan says, going 4 at the back. I mean, obviously, I've only got the bits that I saw, and I didn't see much of the second half because obviously I was in Ibrox at the time, and I've just watched the highlights back before we came on just to remind myself of the goals. But I mean, going 4 at the back and sort of limiting it, you think that would work on quite a narrow pitch, because you're not relying on width with 4 at the back. But as Alan says, it clearly didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, it never really seems to work, And at the time, I sort of, after that game on Wednesday, I think it was Cara I said to, maybe it was you after, I can't remember. I sort of naively put losing the second half down to, she wanted to rest, as many players as she could ahead of Sunday, at 5-1, like you say, you think the game's won. So, naively, I thought, she's maybe just trying to rest players and she's not really worried how the rest of the game goes as long as we win. But, looking at Sunday, she sort of made the same mistakes again with the subs that she made. So I take back what I said, about her resting players, because she did the same thing yesterday. So yeah, it didn't work then. And it's the same as, playing 3 up front against, the stronger teams in the league. That doesn't work either. We've said it many times on the podcast. It doesn't work, and she insists on going with it.
Yeah, Brian, to Demi's point that, the manager was clearly resting players with, an eye on the league decider against Hibs on the Sunday. Is it not? Do you not think it's a bit strange that of the 5 substitutions she made, 4 of them were forward players? So the midfield didn't get a break, and only one of the centre halves got a break, and the centre half that got a break's hardly played because she took her half off for Cathy. And okay, Cathy needed some minutes, but Raf's hardly played. So you could have left the defence where it was because Tess is in there; she's hardly played as well. But she takes off Kirsty Howard, Rio Hardy, Wilco, Mia McCauley. She leaves on Kirsty McLean, who's been playing a lot of football lately, Jodie McCleary, who's been playing a lot of football lately, and Chelsea Cornett, who's been playing a lot since coming back from injury.
Yeah, it was kind of baffling, that series of subs, as you say. The engine room has been working extremely hard this last wee while. I appreciate she was wanting to rest players at the weekend, obviously for the Hibs game, but at the same time, it was the wrong areas of the pitch for me that she was giving the rest to. As you say, the engine room was really needing a decent rest. At the end of the day, the strikers run generally when like the ball's near them or they're trying to make a run, so they're not all actively running quite a lot. But whereas the midfield are on their toes, they're on the go all the time. And I thought after being 5-1 up, I thought, right, give the midfield a breather, take them off, refresh the midfield. But unfortunately, again, as you said, the back 4 just doesn't seem to work. I even watching the highlights back today, like against Hearts, it could have been, they could have actually got like 4 or 5. It could have been a lot closer. So yeah, the subs were definitely baffling to say the least, and it was the wrong area of the pitch for me to give a rest.
Carl, do you agree with Brian? Do you think that the subs were possibly the wrong ones to make? I mean, I'm always banging on she doesn't use 5 when she's got 5. I noticed there was only 7 on the bench, which I was a bit surprised at because we're going to have 9. We sort of concluded that might have been the fact that you couldn't put the kids on because, it's midweek, it's in Edinburgh, it's exam time, all that sort of stuff. But there was only 5. There was only 7 on the bench again yesterday. But we'll get to that. So, do you think as well that she could possibly give at least one of the midfielder, a half off or half an hour off or whatever on Wednesday night?
Well, she could have, but she's done it all season. How often do we scream for Liv McLaughlin to get subbed all season and she'd still be on the pitch at 90 minutes and other players around her would be getting subbed? She's got it wrong all season. The timing of subs, the subs that she's made, and most of the time rotation has been wrong the whole season. I think she's just a little bit out of her depth, and that's just the way that it's been with her. And it was the same on Wednesday. And I don't know if it was, I need to keep it fresh for Sunday. But they played a lot of football recently, so it really should have been the midfield that was getting a break somewhere, because you could shuffle them around if you really needed to. Could have put Tess back into the midfield and then gone to a back 3 instead. But I just don't really think she knows what to do in a crisis like that. And it's kind of been that way all this season. Last season, she got lucky with the players that she had, the formation that worked. But this season, it's not been the same because we've not had the same players that she could slot into that areas of the pitch. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, Debbie, apparently the bear behind you wants to wave at the camera, but I don't. He's obviously not mentioning the one behind me that you can only just about see. So, but yeah, first the sniper, I noticed things like that. So, Alan, I mean, going into the game yesterday, we were 4 of us there. Brian was unfortunately engaged elsewhere, but we were all, we were all fairly buoyant, fairly confident. It's Hibs, okay, they only needed a point, but we were in the better position that we knew what we had to do. A win was enough. Unusually for Joe, she never changed the starting lineup from Wednesday. Was that a surprise, or did you just think, well, fair enough, it's the same again, we'll just do what we did to Hearts?
No, I don't think it was a surprise, given that she had rotated out most of the forwards, and we had to go and win the game. It was the same starting team that wiped the floor with Hearts in the first half on Wednesday night, so I was quite happy to see the same team, but very quickly into the game, I wasn't happy with the shape because it wasn't what we watched work so well in the first half on Wednesday night.
Oh no, we're well aware you weren't happy with the shape, is that right, Car?
Yeah, Alan's very good at making us aware of how he feels about everything to do with football, which is nice because it feeds us some information if we've maybe not caught on to what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, Alan's definitely the tactician guy. I don't really do tactics. I don't really notice formations and stuff like that. I never really have. I do watch games completely differently, Brian. Now that I'm doing a podcast than I ever did before, I don't know if you're the same, but I watch games differently. I actually look for things happening now rather than just that's what's happened. But the game yesterday, Brian. Hibs at Ibrox, were you confident? I know you weren't fortunate enough to be at the game, but were you confident enough going into it when you saw the team lineup? Were you thinking, well, okay? Because obviously I know what everybody else thought because we all kind of discussed it at the time. But
yeah, as Alan said, the team that started yesterday was the same team that demolished Hearts in the first half. So you were kind of thinking, right, okay, that makes a little bit of sense. There's nothing out of the ordinary there. The only one I think I was harping on, during the week was, we needed pace in the wings. I felt we needed Brogan and me on the pitch at the same time to give them a bit of, to let them do a bit of damage down the wings. But, Brogan was put to the bench. So that was my theory out the window. But the team lineup looked fine. I wasn't too disappointed. As I say, that would have been the only change I would have made. But apart from that, it looked good. And, you were kind of thinking, right, the team that finished the first half against Hearts was starting this game. So, let's carry on.
Davey, we needed picking up Brian point. We needed width. Where at Ibrox, the pitch is absolutely massive. We needed width. Okay, yeah, but probably in hindsight, you probably would have started Brogan, but you've got me and McCauley who can play wide. Obviously, you've got Jodie McCleary playing wide. We just didn't use the width. When we started off first 10 minutes, we used the width quite well. Then it all just seemed to revert to type, and Jodie was basically playing as a number 6 most of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very bizarre one, especially, Jodie was playing, like you say, she was playing quite deep, and, on a pitch, not even just the width, but, the length of Ibrox as well, and the width and all. You can't expect a player to run that much. If you're playing her on the wing, but you want her to be playing deep, Like, it doesn't really work on a pitch that size. So, you know, you kind of need to decide if you're playing, like, you know, what you're playing, where you're playing them. You can't expect them to be running the length of that pitch for 90 minutes, you know. You wouldn't expect your strikers to do it, your centre backs to do it. So why are you expecting Jodie and Mia to do it? You know, especially on a pitch that size. So yeah, it was a bit baffling, you know, where she sort of played them. Yeah, I'm not sure I really understood that. And you know, with Brogan, I said yesterday, I assumed she had an injury and or a knock and couldn't play the entire time because, with the best of respect to Jodie, if you've got a choice of Jodie or Brogue in a must-win game, surely you're playing Brogues. You know what I mean? I don't understand.
Carl, do you think do you agree with Demi's point that we should have, clearly we should have used the width a bit more, but was it a bit, was it as baffling to use it was to us that we started off? I mean, Jodie started off at 1,000,000 miles an hour. I'm screaming at her to calm herself down. She was out the wing, getting the ball back in, play really quick. But then she just seemed to disappear in the middle of the park.
Yeah, I think that maybe comes down to that's how Jodie plays, but nobody else around her was doing the same thing. And I think she just kind of said, well, what's the point? No one else is helping me here. I'm not getting the same level of intensity and help from everyone else around me. So I'll just slow down a bit. And then, as you said, it did just revert to type. We should have been doing a lot more passing, long passing, not over the top, long passing, like through the width of the pitch across. We weren't doing that. We're just hoofing long balls. It was just getting sucked into the air and we're doing nothing with it. I would start Brogan personally. She's got the experience of winning the league. She's got a lot more experience than Jodie. And Jodie's a great player, don't get me wrong. She's been exceptional for us this season. But I think Brogan's got a bit more of a calm head. Jodie was getting a little bit frustrated. Most of them were, to be fair. But I think Jodie got a little bit frustrated at times, and that was kind of showing.
Alan, do you think that Joe started Jodie over Brogan because she was playing her deeper, she was playing her sort of almost as a wing back as opposed to, Brogan likes to play further up the field. Do you think that's why she started that way? I know that's what Brogan did when she came on, but would you attest that that's probably why Jodie got the nod over Brogan, or are you like them? Do you think Brogan was possibly carrying a knock, or what's your thinking of it being a tactical guy?
Probably set me up for a fall call me that, but I think just Jodie's work rate, we tend to play wing backs, so the demand and the physical demand on the wingers and the wing backs is massive. And quite early in the game, so Jodie started as a wing back, but we kind of went to a back four, so she was restricted and having to stay back a lot more. Same as Nick on the other side, but we were facing a left back at Hibs who doesn't play left back, who was clearly struggling with the pace of Mia going at her, and was on her booting. And it's been mentioned in comments, mentioned in the chat, the fact that the referee completely bottled it to send her off. Could have changed not only the game but the league. We did not put anywhere near enough pressure on that girl, and it sounds cynical. It sounds maybe unsportsmanlike, but if you're playing against somebody playing out of position in a game of that importance, you've got to put pressure on him. Same as you play against a reserve keeper, you want to put balls on top of him, put pressure on him. We didn't do that enough. We not got the street smarts to do that. We should have been doubling up on her and putting her under all sorts of pressure, because we were getting joy when we did, but we just didn't do it enough.
Yeah, Demi, as Alan says, and as Paul McGonigal says in the chat, the lassie Gibbs should have been sent off. She had numerous warnings after her booking. I mean, Alan's right, we should have put a lot more pressure on her because she's not naturally a left back. But I mean, she did get booking, and then just before half time, Mia ran at her. Mia went past her. She pulled her down. Mia got up. She then pulled her down again, which Alan rightly said, that's two bookable offences. Then the two of them went head to head, which normally with a referee is a yellow card each, and he just did nothing. So you could argue she could possibly have had 3 second yellow cards within about 30 seconds, and she stayed on the pitch. Now, that would probably have changed the game. Alan says you don't want to be unsportsmanlike, but as Joe said after the game, they're good at the dark arts. We are not good at the dark arts. We should have been screaming at the referee, get her in the book. Which would have said, I get the referee's job is to try and keep 11 players on the pitch for both sides. However, as he proved later in the game, with the most ridiculous sending off you'll ever see, given the timing of it, that the rules don't really apply sometimes.
Yeah, look, I mean, let's start with the last bit you said there. If he's sending Raf off, when practically the last kick of the ball for that, I mean, you've seen in games where that's given as a yellow, so if he's going, just giving that as a red, literally on the last kick of the ball, he literally could have given that. He could have just booked her for that, But yeah, given the amount that he's ignored prior to that, it was shocking that he sent her off. Yes, she was the last man, but I mean, she still had, quite a bit of space to go to cover. So yeah, ridiculous. And yeah, disappointing he didn't send Gibb off, but to be honest, can I say I'm surprised?
My point was that Cara's excuse probably for not sending Gibb off as well, it would probably have spoiled the game. But if he's applying the rules, and Raf probably, by the laws of the game, it was a red card for Raf because the lassie was through, right? By the laws of the game. It was literally, the free kick was literally the last kick of the ball. So you use common sense. But he clearly doesn't use common sense because he sent Raf off. So surely he can't then use common sense, if you like, to keep Hibs with 11 players on the park.
Well, the rules are the rules, regardless of the time of the foul, if it's the start of the game, if it's the end of the game. And Raf's is a red card, so I fully agree that he should have sent her off, regardless of that it was 2 seconds to go to the end of the game. But the fact that he wasn't giving out cards earlier in the game when they should have been cards, it doesn't really make any sense. But that's just ineptitude. The refs in this league, well, in Scotland in general, but specifically in SWPL, are rotten. They're so bad. Every game you watch, whether it be us versus them, it doesn't matter. They're all howling. They're so bad at their jobs. But yet we moan about it and all we get is, oh, well, you lost the league, so it's sour grapes. That's not how this works. They're just bad referees, and it's decisions that do cost titles in games when things like that aren't upheld when it's a letter of the law.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, it's clearly obvious Hibs know they got away with one because they took the lassie off at half time. The lassie that should have been sent off. So they know they got away with one. So are we right, or is it sour grapes?
No, it's not sour grapes. I said it in the afternoon pod today, speaking about the men, apply the rules as you see them. You can't just ignore them or pick and choose when a foul's been occurred or, an infringement's happened. As Cara said, if it's the first second or the 94th minute, apply the rules as you see them. You can't just chop and change just to suit a narrative. If it's a yellow card offence, you book them. If it's a red card offence, you book them. So I hate this fact where they say, oh, well, it would have spoiled the game, blah, blah. No. Apply the rules as it should be. Nobody can complain then. If you just apply the rules as you see it, call the shots as you see them, nobody complains.
Yeah, I mean, Alan, picking up on that, there was one that's just jumped into my mind. After about 3 minutes, there was a Hibs player that I was screaming should have got booked, but it was that old Scottish, it's the first 10 minutes you don't get booked thing. That kind of emphasises the point that there shouldn't be a booking's a booking, whether it's the first minute, the 10th minute, the last minute, So how the Hibs player didn't get her jotters. I mean, even the going head to head with Mia. 90% of the games you see that happens, it's a yellow card each. The only reason for me didn't get a yellow card is the Hibs player's already on one.
Exactly, and listen, we've probably all played at school or whatever level, gone beyond that, and you always felt in Scotland your first tackle's free. You always got away with one to start with, and that's not right. Just because it's always been the way, it doesn't make it right. As we've already said, if 10 seconds into a game or 10 seconds for the end of the game, a booking's a booking. A red card's a red card. I know some people might think Raf's red card was harsh because there was somebody chasing the middle, but she had 10 yards on. I think it was maybe Chelsea running back. She was going through and goal and getting a shot and goal if she wanted one, so red card, fair enough. What annoys me is I was saying the rules concerning the suspensions in the women's game shortly before I've done this, and it looks like she will be suspended for a Scottish Cup final on Sunday, which is annoying because if somebody gets sent off for a straight red in the league, it's not violent conduct in the SPFL, that suspension will not apply to Scottish Cup games. Only if it's violent conduct, but any red card or any suspension accumulated will apply to the next game, across all competitions. So if that information had been sent right, we're missing Raf. We're already missing Leah Eddy, and we're already missing Ailey Austin because we're stupid enough to loan her out in January.
Yep, that's something else we'll get on to. I mean, I instantly said, Carl, yesterday, I instantly said that's her out the cup final. And then obviously Alan said, no, it shouldn't matter. It's a league game and a cup game, and it's not violent conduct. And maybe you're right, but it would appear that, you know, she is going to be out the cup final, which I can tell with the look in your face you're not particularly pleased about.
Well, no, because we've got Kathy, who's just back from injury and played, 30 minutes on Wednesday. And we've got Tess, unless you're throwing Vic Essen in the back line, if she's willing to play there. Or we're doing a back three, kind of. I don't know. I mean, I didn't realise that was the case, but then Demi said it carries on to next season then, if it's like last game of the season. So does that mean she misses the cup final and then the first 2 games of next season? No,
if she misses the cup final, I would assume that's a suspension. It should only be 1 game. So, but I would much rather it carried on to next season if she played the Sunday.
I can't believe that's the rules, but all right.
But Brian, irrespective of whether that's a rule or not, Paul saying we should appeal it. For me, can't appeal it. It's a red card.
I remember I put it in the group chat yesterday, and I felt the girl, our defender in the centre of the pitch, had enough ground to cover and get back. But I'll maybe concede this one in the sense that I still don't see it as a goal scoring opportunity. She's inside her own half when she's fouled. She's still got a whole half and a bit to get to the goal. So I'm still not saying it's denying a goal scoring opportunity. It's a professional foul. It's not a goal scoring opportunity. So I'll maybe concede that in the sense that it's a red. She knew what she was doing. I would err on the side of it's a professional foul rather than a goal scoring opportunity. So
yeah. My only thing about it is it's a red card all day, but it's the last kick of the game, and given how lenient he'd been with the Hibs players just before half time, I'm not astounded that he sent her off, but he should just said, look, I should send you off, but there's a yellow card. Let's just get the game finished.
Yeah, that's what should have happened, but unfortunately, as Card and all the guys have said, that doesn't really matter in Scotland because common sense really doesn't apply to referees. They don't really know when to engage their brains and use common sense. So I'm afraid you've just got to put up with whatever nonsense they sort of produce on the day. So it was just another example of inconsistencies, not being consistent enough, and almost picking and choosing which sort of fouls are fouls and which ones aren't, even though they're the same thing.
Yep. Demi, I'm going to throw the low point to you. I'm really sorry. The Hibs goal, an absolute shambles. We should be stopping the cross coming in. They should be marking the lassie that put as a centre half that scores with her feet in the 6-yard box. So somebody should be tracking her run. I've actually watched the goal back just to make sure my eyes weren't deceiving me, and I'm mystified that the player we've got out trying to cut out the cross is Raff, or centre half's out trying to cut out the cross, and there's nobody in the middle trying to stop the lassie scoring the goal. I mean, just the sort of goal we lose all the time.
Yeah, look, the whole thing was a shambles, like you say. But I mean, it was almost kind of, similar to the rest of the game. We were letting them run 40, 50 yards. And then we were challenging them when they came into our box. Except this time, there was nobody challenging her. She had, ran as far as she did. Nobody had challenged her. Cross came into the box, and as usual, we didn't deal with it. But even beyond that, I think Jenna Fife's got to do better. I mean, I seen it back last night. Wish I hadn't bothered to watch it back, but seeing it back last night, and she almost dived for it in like slow motion. Like I felt like I was watching the video slowed down because she kind of looked at it, knew she had to dived, and then stuck her arm out. So yeah, it was very bizarre, the whole thing. The not blocking the cross, letting them have that much space, letting them run that far, and just the goalkeeping for that goal. The whole lot of it's just a shambles.
Alan, do you think Jenna thought it was going wide?
I don't know if she thought it was going wide or she thought she just had to get more extension and almost waiting to the last possible minute to get her arm out to try and push herself a bit further. But it did look like it was in slow motion and just a misjudgment. But what annoyed me, I put myself through listening to the RTV interview with Joe after the game, and she's talking about it being a poor goal to lose. I'm like, it's all very well saying that. It's the same goal we've been losing for the last 2 years. You know, and all right, it came on the second phase or third phase from a set piece, which is probably why their best centre half is out in the wing trying to cut out a cross as opposed to cutting out the cross when it comes in the middle. But you know, game over. You know, we never looked like scoring yesterday, especially in that second half. We were never ever scoring 2 goals once Hibs had got that lead. And we can complain all we want about how much time Hibs wasted. Hibs came to spoil that game. I couldn't blame him one little bit, because if I was Grant Scott, my team would have been doing exactly the same. It was up to us to deal with that. It was up to the referee to stamp down on it a wee bit, and we didn't do it.
Brian, if we scored in the first minute, I'd have been expecting Rangers to do exactly what Hibs did for the rest of the game, because that's, you break the game up, you don't let the opposition get any momentum. I've got no complaint at all. I was saying to Debbie all the way home, I've got no complaint at all with the way Hibs try to play the game. I mean, Carl Joe said, you know, Hibs have got all the street smarts, for want of a better expression. Although that's not the one she used. And you know, they were throwing bodies in front of it there. She said they've got good defenders. I don't think they've got good. They've got brave defenders. They just, I mean, Mia had a chance early on in the game. The keeper did well to save, but she could possibly have done better with nice one just over the top. Apart from that, we offered absolutely nothing, and we got a shot late on again from Mia that they just. Last year, I think it was Siobhan Hunter just threw her face in front of it. Then okay, you can't really do a lot of damage to that face that's not already there, but that's another story. But you know, they do what they have to do. We don't seem to be brave enough in defence. We just aren't.
They're brave and well organised, and I think that's something that we lack. There's too much instruction being given to them. One doesn't know what the other one's going to do, and it causes confusion. The only brave one I'd say that we have is Raf, and that's why she's had 2 head injuries the last couple this season. But I don't know, they're just well organized. They know what they're doing. They all went to battle for each other, whereas we had a team of individuals that didn't seem like they wanted to be there most of the game, to be honest. We had a few half-hearted attempts at goal, but nothing really else, and we weren't really doing that much. That's why I don't think if that Lassie Gibb gets sent off, I don't know if we really go on and win that game if we continue to play that way.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, you know, it was noticeable even early doors in the first half. We'll let one of the Hibs players run. I don't know who it was. She must have run 60 or 70 yards completely unchallenged from the edge of her box to the edge of our box. And, you know, I really felt for Jodie, because Jodie was the nearest Rangers player to her, but she was conscious that the Hibs winger was out behind her, so she didn't want to leave her and go to the Lassie with the ball, and there was nobody coming near her. It was bizarre.
Yes. Just very bemusing in the sense that, as you say, Jodie's bursting her gut, trying to close everything down, and then looking round, another folk are jogging or out of position, so they're way out of the game. I think it's just, as somebody said in the comment, I just think Hibs wanted it more. I think they knew what was on the line. You know, they hadn't won the league for 18 years, so they really wanted that yesterday. Whereas there's been far too many occasions this season. I think our teams just expected to win or went out there full believe it. You know, not thinking the game's won before they've even went out there. So it's the Hibs were well drilled. You can't deny that. As you say, they were blocking. They were putting some great blocks into the ball. But I'll tell you what, I bet that Hibs goalie can just take that shirt and shorts and just pin them up for the next game, because there wasn't a bead of sweat or mud on that kit, because we did nothing to test her. I think that's the most galling thing. We've got 3 of the best strikers in the league, and we barely put her under any pressure.
I mean, I think you've also got to look at not even letting her run that far. It's the fact that Siobhan Hunter was taking the absolute Michael out of us multiple times. You know, she stands still with the ball, and the nearest Rangers player is 40 yards away with absolutely nobody pressing her. They just stood there and watched her stand with the ball, for a good, minute. If you're running, you'll get there quicker than her if she has to start to run. So, I just don't understand why nobody was pressing her there when she was just standing with the ball at her feet, not even moving. She literally stood in one position multiple times and nobody went near her.
Yeah, the only person doing the pressing was Kirsty Howard. You can't have a one person press against a defence because they just stick it sideways and you look absolutely ridiculous. So Demi, this was coming to you before you went off on a wee rant there. So Alan, I'll let you have this one from John Weir. I know Wilco has scored a barrel load of goals, but do you think she does enough against the better teams now? I know you've got an opinion on this because you've shared it.
Yeah, and I'll qualify it to start with because I don't think we make enough chances for our strikers in a big game spot. Really annoyed me watching Rio playing wide right yesterday because Rio scored the same amount of goals against the top five, if you like, as Katie Wilkinson and Kirsty Howard have put together. We've scored one goal a season against Hibs in the league. One goal in 4 games against Hibs. And that was a last-minute equaliser to steal a point back Meadowbank in October or whenever it was. Katie's not scored against Hibs and she's not scored against Glasgow City this season. She's got one more chance to score against City on Sunday and hopefully she'll grab another hat-trick. But we're not doing enough to get Katie Wilkinson in the right areas in these big games. She hadn't scored against Hearts this season until Wednesday. She got 2. She scored, I think, 3 against Celtic. But all our strikers have scored against Celtic this year, I think. But we just don't score enough goals. And I think the way that we've treated Rio this season is criminal. Because for all the goals Katie Wilkinson scores, if we need a goal scored in a big game, Rio Hardy's the one you'd put your house on. Rio Hardy's got 28 goals, I think, this season. And she's getting wasted wide right in a big game where we have to win the game to win the league. It's a one-off game. Win the game, you win the league. You go and you get a chance to win the treble next year. And we've got a most dangerous player playing out of position wide right. Particularly in the second half, obviously Hibs had took Kayla Gibb off, who was a liability for him, and put on Stacey Papadopoulos, who's been absolutely phenomenal for Hibs this season. And we've not had a sniff against her in 5 games we've played. Even in the cup final when we horsed them, she was still excellent in that game.
Yeah, I mean, Carr, Alan makes a great point about Rio Hardy, playing out wide, being absolutely wasted out there, and it clearly wasn't working. So what does Joe do in her wisdom? 2 minutes from time takes it off and puts Lizzie Arnott on. I mean, waiting so long, so late to make a substitution. I mean, okay, she made a double substitution with 20 minutes to go, which put Brogan on for Jodie and Laura Berry on for Kirsty Howard. It just wasn't Kirsty's day. I mean, the ball wasn't sticking to her. I thought Kirsty didn't. I think Kirsty was trying too hard. It just wasn't working for her. That's probably maybe because she cares too much. But so okay, 20 minutes to go. You can see it. That gives them plenty of time. But to make your last 2 substitutions, and again, she only went with 4 subs, not 5. Bringing Jane on for Mia and Lizzie on for Rio, or whatever way around you want to do that, with 2 minutes to go. I mean, what's the point?
I don't know, it seems pre-planned and that she doesn't want to deviate from the plan that she had. I genuinely don't know, because I don't know why you bring on your youngest striker and your oldest striker to try and save a game and save the season, essentially, with not enough time to do that. I genuinely don't understand that, but I'd rather Rio Hardy playing up front by herself and just having the wingers on that could put balls into her than having the 3 of them there and not really any of them having a good day. I don't think it makes any sense in my opinion. But that's the way that Joe's been doing it this season. And it's worked in lesser games and against Celtic, but it's not really worked against anyone else, like the big games that really matter. Wilco doesn't do enough other than the Celtic game when she's played deep. Kirsty Howard, as you say, wanted it too much, was getting frustrated and a little bit annoyed by the situation. And then Rio wasn't really getting the time of day to be able to do anything because she was too far out. It just didn't work. The whole thing didn't work.
Yeah, Brian, I was going to ask you a question, but it's gone completely out of my head. I can't remember what I was going to say to you. So I'll move on. That's enough of yesterday's absolute shit show. I mean, it was done, unfortunately. You know, we missed out in Europe as well, which is absolutely galling. So, you know, Brian, you think that's going to have a massive effect on any players that we can bring in? Because obviously the squad's going to need a massive overhaul. I can see more than 2 or 3 players leaving for a variety of different reasons. And do you think the manager will still be here?
I think there's a high probability she might go on. She might move on now. I think if you had at least the sort of fallback of finishing second, then, or, you know, still being in Europe, she might have hung around. But I think I've got my doubts she'll hang around now. I think she'll just say thanks very much and leave. As you say, the squad is going to need a big. Well, Jane, I believe Tess is going to be leaving, and Vic. So there's 3 straight off the bat that we know of. I'd imagine there's a few others in there you could throw in. It's going to be a big job in the summer. And before summer even, you're kind of looking at next weekend with a bit of worry now, because, you know, Glasgow finished above us. They seem to have a good idea of what they're doing. So yeah, it's from Saturday morning, Sunday morning, looking like potentially winning 3. We might actually just end up with what was, you know, went into the weekend with just 1 trophy instead of 3.
So, Alan, I'll ask this to you, because I've mentioned it to Demi on numerous occasions in the last couple of days. If Joe leaves, and I said a couple of weeks ago I expect her to leave anyway, if Joe leaves, does the likes of Rafa Wilco leave as well because Joe's leaving?
I think that's a hard one to predict. You know, Joe's been a big part of players like that coming up, but I think it very much depends on the profile of manager that comes in. You know, I think they'll take their time and look at who's going to come in. They're all under contract for next year, those that you've mentioned, so there'll not be any rush to go to make a decision, but I think it'll depend. I don't think the players look like they've enjoyed this season. I don't think the body language looks good in the squad. I think the group looks a wee bit fractured, but I think they need a change, and I think most of the players, at least from the stands, look like they would appreciate a change. So I think it's badly needed, but it's probably badly needed for support to see something different. You know, going so deep into the season and ending up disappointed the last 3 seasons, you know, it's hard, it's tiring, and it's tiring for the fans and the players. So I do think there'll be a lot of changes. There's at least 7 out of contract, probably more this summer. So I expect quite an overhaul this summer.
Yeah. Carl, talking about players going out. Personally speaking, if I'm Kirsty McLean, I'm looking for the nearest exit door, because, you know, the work Kirsty does on the ball is fantastic, but she's got to overplay it all the time because there's absolutely no movement. I mean, I thought off the ball yesterday, particularly, we were an absolute shambles. The amount of time, you know, because as Alan said earlier, the midfield just doesn't work. It's just not there. So Kirsty's got the ball and she's got to kind of beat the defender. I mean, it made her look good a couple of times yesterday because she actually beat a player she wasn't looking to beat because she had to, you know, for the way I was looking at it, because she didn't have an out ball, because off the ball I thought we were a shambles. So, you know, I think irrespective of who comes in, given the way the season's going, I think our ball players will look to go. I think Innie's an absolute stick on to leave.
Yeah, I mean, as gutting as it's going to be, I don't blame her. She should be the centrepiece in that midfield in any team that she walks into. She could be in Chelsea's midfield, winning trebles with them. She could be at Man City playing alongside Jess Park and absolutely bossing it. And yet she's stuck in a midfield that doesn't have movement, doesn't have the intensity that she needs around her. And she's so young. She's got such a fruitful career ahead of her. I don't blame her if somebody comes in for her that she wants to leave, because why would you stay if this is the situation you're in, where you could go to a team that's, you know, got real hopes of Champions League, and instead of staying here? I know it's a hard team, but she could be earning a lot of money playing in a well better team than we currently are at the moment. But as you say, if a new manager might promise her the world, and maybe she'll stay. I don't know, but I'd love her to, but I don't see it. But I think that's the same with a lot of players, to be honest.
Right, Brian, we're going to get a crystal ball out, okay? Because I mean, Alan's on the main pod in 15 minutes, so we'll need to kind of wrap up for him. But we're going to get a crystal ball out, Brian, right? So Joe leaves with everybody's thanks for their efforts, etc., etc., etc. Right? So you're given three scenarios for the new manager, okay?
Mm-hmm.
We bring Malky back. I'm watching Carl's face here. We bring Malky back because he's still about the club, right? We coax Jay Bradford back up to run the show on our own, right? Or Jane and Tess as a management duo. If that's your three options, which one are you going for?
Well, the first one's not an option. Let's get that one out of the way. Would Jay do it? Would Jay come back and maybe have that the second option as our understudies? I don't know. I'm just throwing that one out there. Option B with C helping. That would be all right for me.
Demi, would you go along with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit too early and I know Jane and Tess, they've both recently got coaching badges and all that, but, you can't expect your first managerial job to be at Rangers in the league that we're in, where it's effectively a 3, maybe a 4-horse league and, 1 or 2 bad performances and you've lost the league. But yeah, if Jay Bradford and those two under her, yeah, that would be all right. I wouldn't have them two on their own as managers in there, but yeah, I wouldn't mind her. Well, I wouldn't mind trying her with those two underneath her.
Alan, a very quick yes or no.
No, to all three.
Okay, who would your alternative be, or would you have one, or would you just think what we've got?
I don't have an alternative. I don't know who's available and fits the right profile, but I have to trust Donald knows better than me.
Right,
like I said to you last night, I happen to know a man who wants the job as Rangers manager, so
yeah, but he's not going to get it. But anyway, Carl.
I didn't say he was going to get it. I'm just adding up.
Do you know, I might surprise a few people. If those are the three options, I would take Malky back. He's won the league. If those are the only three options in this world for some reason, it's not. But if those were the only three options, I would maybe take Malky back. Because Tess and Jane don't have enough experience. Jay's not coming back up the road. She got the first chance to leave and left, and I don't blame her, to be honest. She was so close to getting promoted, she'll want a crack at that again. So if those are the only three options, then I'm taking Malky. It's not that I want him back, but that's the most sensible option.
Carl, there's the drug testers at your door, so we'll just let you go. So anyway, just before we go, so that Alan is back on, give him time to give him some finish. I had a wee look at the results at Ibrox in the games that we played at Ibrox, right? And this is probably going to surprise nobody. We played 9 games at Ibrox, including Benfica, who beat us 3-2 in the Champions League. So if you're talking domestically, we played 8 games at Ibrox. We've won 3, drawn 2, and lost 3.
Can I please jump in on this?
You're not in school. You don't need to put your hand up.
I'm not buying this whole, it's Ibrox that hinders us. I'm sorry, but I'm not buying it. You've got to look at who we play. Everyone's saying, oh, City and Hibs keep beating us at Ibrox. Okay, but they beat us at Broadwood. They beat us at Piers Hill. They beat us at Meadowbank. I'm not buying this. It's moving the games to Ibrox malarkey. And quite frankly, I wish people would stop saying it, because it's absolutely not where we play, it's who we're playing. And the fact that we can't show up for it regardless of where we look at the results this season. It's not the fact we're playing them at Ibrox. It's the fact that they've been better than us.
Demi, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it either. I just want to point out the fact that my Ibrox record isn't great. So I'd be all for playing every game at Ibrox, but that's never going to happen, right? But surely if we're playing at Ibrox, we shouldn't be moving the bigger games to Ibrox. We should be moving the games. I mean, if you look at the record at Ibrox, we'll beat Aberdeen 4-0 at Ibrox in April 2022. We lost to Glasgow City in May 23. We then beat Hearts in October 23, 7-0. Drew with Celtic in February 24. Drew with Glasgow City in October 24. Beat Hearts again last month, 2 months ago. Then we lost to Glasgow City and lost to Hibs. So if we want to get used to playing at Ibrox, surely, Brian, we stop playing the bigger teams at Ibrox and start playing the so-called smaller teams at Ibrox? Or is that totally ridiculous thing to say?
No, it's not ridiculous, but I think you've got to mix it up a little bit. I think you've got to mix it in the sense that you play some of the smaller teams and some of the bigger teams. I think just solely playing all the big teams is leaving your way open to criticism, as Demi's saying, because we've struggled to beat Glasgow City and Hibs this season. So play a mix. Don't play all the Ibrox games against the so-called big teams. Throw in a couple of the weird teams in there and get a bit of confidence up, so that when they play, they play those teams and they score a few goals against them, then they feel more comfortable. I think if you're playing all the big teams, it's always a hard game. So, just mix it around a bit. I would say, not just play all the bigger teams there.
Right, Carl, you can address that as well as this point here from Paul, that next season our club he repeats, must promote the women's team 100% more. So they only playing the sort of bigger teams at Ibrox, bit silly. And then if you can answer that as well.
Yeah, I think we need to play more games earlier in the season at Ibrox instead of it being towards the tail end and into the split. I think that's the problem. The pressure's too much. We're maybe at a point already where we've either lost the league or it's too tight. It needs to be earlier in the season if it can stop clashing. That's the main problem at that point. I think the club does need to do more, because the only place they really promote it's the website and on social media. They need to do more around Ibrox, around the club in general, to try and promote it. Because if you're not on Twitter, Facebook, or all of these sites, and you're maybe not on the website, you probably don't know we've got games half of the time. And I think that's a big thing. It should be more in the programme, maybe even give us our own section in the programme or our own programme, but that's a discussion for another day. And do more to try and promote it and actually care, instead of it just being, come to the big games, show up for us, and then inevitably lose that game and nobody cares anymore because it's rubbish.
Yeah, Alan, I'll get your opinion on that. I mean, I was quite vocal on Wednesday night. The game against Hearts finished about 2 minutes before half-time in the men's game against Dundee United, and there wasn't a people at half-time at Ibrox. For me, it was an absolutely fantastic opportunity for the club to have it all over the big screens. Get yourself down here at Ibrox on Sunday, 12 o'clock, all the ticket information, league decider, etc. I was lucky enough to be at Easter Road on Saturday with Demi, and before the game, all over the PA, tomorrow, Ibrox, 12 o'clock, the women can win the league, get yourself along. So Hibs took advantage of it, Rangers didn't. Ridiculous.
I noticed Hibs also promoted the women's team heavily last time we were at Easter Road as well, so it's something clearly they do a lot better than we do. And you're absolutely right, and Paul's absolutely right, we need to promote it more. I think that it's not helping the players. As much as the players want to go and play in the big grounds and get the bigger crowds, they want to play at Ibrox all the time. We play all the games at Ibrox, or we play none of them at Ibrox. See us moving back and forward. Play all the games at Broadwood, or we play all of them at Ibrox. And we obviously, to make it worthwhile, playing at Ibrox, you have to get to a certain crowd level. So we have to be quite aggressively pushing that to get to that level where we're at Ibrox all the time, because that's going to just be a stick used to beat the players all the time if we continue to put the big games here, trying to get a big occasion for winning the league. And that's twice now it's blown up my face.
Yeah, I mean, that said, the thick end of 6,000, Brian, yesterday at Ibrox, and you weren't one of them, sad to say, but anyway, the thick end of 6,000 at Ibrox yesterday in the sunshine. And I think there was a few Hibs fans there, but I was quite disappointed. I thought there'd be more Hibs fans there from what I could see. But I mean, the less of them in Ibrox, the better, but that's another story. That's a good turnout, but it's going to be counterproductive, because not only did we get beat, the game was an absolute bag of rubbish. So, it didn't do a lot to promote the game. But the fact that 6,000 turned up for a start's not a bad jump off point if we can build on it.
That's the point. It's a good starting point. But as you say, encouraging them to win leagues and be competitive and taking control of games and scoring lots of goals more at the point. That's another game where I haven't scored at Ibrox, and all the wee kids want to see goals and celebrate and enjoy the day. But when you're not scoring goals, and especially the other team go on and win the league at the same time, doesn't really help matters. But as you said, in the guts of 6,000 yesterday, it was a decent turnout considering some of the attendances we've had previous. So we're kind of hoping that that's going to get better. But when you're winning leagues and when you're winning cups, that's when you attract more people in. And unfortunately, we haven't won the league this year, so that's going to be another tall task for them.
Yeah, the goals thing's all the more reason to play some of the smaller teams so the kids can see us scoring goals. But anyway, we really have to get out of here because Alan's back on in less than 5 minutes on the main pod. So thanks everybody in the comments. Don't forget, we do have a cup final on Sunday at Hampden. Tickets are still available. Glasgow City's the opposition. 2:10 kick-off. Very, very quickly. Car, how's it going to go on Sunday?
I don't think we win. And I hate saying that. I genuinely hate saying that, but I don't think we win it. If they play like that, we don't win it.
Brian?
I think we're going to lose, sadly.
Yeah, look, I said to you on the way down yesterday, if we won yesterday, we win next Sunday. We didn't, so I think we're going to lose at the weekend.
Yeah, I said exactly the same. So, Alan, are you making it five of the same we're going to get beat?
Put it this way, I'm going to Hampden and hope more than expectation.
Yep.
The players owe themselves a performance, and I really hope they put one on, but it's going to be tough to pick himself up.
Yeah, just before we go, something else I noticed that 4 years ago today, which I know it was during COVID, we played Hibs, right? I can't remember the score, but we played them in Pennycook Public Park, and Hibs are now the champions of Scotland. Just let that sink in. We played them on a public park, and they're now champions of Scotland. That's ridiculous, and we let that happen. Anyway, Brian, thanks for letting me host tonight to save me going on.
That's okay.
Because I was prepared. I was actually going to go live last night with an absolute rant, but didn't.
When you put the request in earlier doors, I thought he's doing that so he doesn't have to go on a major rant. So I kind of knew where you were going with that.
Yeah.
But it was fine. It was nice to be on the other end of the pod today.
Anyway, folks, we really must go because Alan's really running. He won't hear us time to put the kettle on. So thanks all for your company. Hope we haven't been too negative. Hopefully we're here positive next week, but we will be back next week, irrespective of how the cup final goes. Those of you at Hampden on Sunday, we'll see you there. Those of you that are watching the telly, shout loud because we're going to need it. Later, guys.